Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and we've got a really kind of two meetings tonight. If you're sitting here just making sure you understand how we're doing this, is we've got a special meeting that's going to last for a half hour, and then we're going to interview some potential commissioners and make some decisions there. And that probably will take about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll go ahead and start the regular scheduled council meeting at 6. So I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Edgar?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kusamoto?
Here.
Councilmember Churko?
Here.
Councilmember Hasselbrink?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Okay, so orders of the day. We're going to interview applicants for the Personnel Appeals and Planning Commission that we've been provided reports. There's 2 people potentially that we were going to interview today. Just to kind of set this up a little bit is that we also have, there's really 2 commissions that we're focused on, Personnel Appeals and Planning. And I believe the incumbents that are currently in those commissions have applied for their seat again. So really what tonight is we're going to focus on mainly is going through and meeting 2 new applicants, one for Personnel Appeals, which would be Franz Villa, and a new applicant, Jonathan Kranz, for Planning. Before I kick off into this, does any other city council members have any comments or concerns with the process? Okay. With that, I think what we'll do now is we'll start the interview process. And first up to be interviewed is Franz Villa. So, Franz, as you're coming up here, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
The way we go through this process is that each council member gets to ask you a question. In the beginning, we ask you if you'd like to make an opening statement. And then at the end, after you've answered the 5 questions, then we would come back to you and see if you want to make a closing statement. Okay? So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up and allow you to make your introduction.
Hello, council members. Good evening. My name is Franz Villa. Thank you for inviting me here for this interview. First, I had no idea when I applied that the incumbents were already going to reapply for the position, so I want to respect the fact that they have reapplied, and if they feel, or if you feel they're more qualified, then I completely respect that. My name is Franz again. I have been in human resources for quite some time. I believe that I submitted my application for both the Planning Commission and Personnel Commission.
Okay.
I noticed on the agenda that I was there for the Planning Commission, and I also received a letter stating that as well. Okay. But I am happy to be here, happy to answer any questions that you might have for me, and I completely respect whatever decision is made.
Thank you very much, and we really appreciate you coming down and showing your interest in this, in the positions. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start with Councilmember Murphy, and if you wouldn't mind, Richard, just going with the first question.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Most of us here started as commissioners, and it's a great thing you do for the city. Our question is, what special traits, characteristics, or experience do you bring to the Planning Commission?
Great question. Thank you for that, Councilman Murphy. Over the last 10 years, I've been involved in human resources for various companies, Sony Electronics, Home Depot, Big 5 Sporting Goods, which is a local company here in Southern California. I've been involved with human resources and working with personnel, grievances, performance issues over the last 10 years. So I feel that my background in personnel issues would match what is required of the position.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Hasselbrink.
Hi, Franz. Why do you want to serve on the Personnel Appeals Commission or the Planning Commission?
Hello, Councilwoman. Thank you. Great question. So I'm a recent citizen here, a resident of Los Alamitos. But prior to moving here, we visited quite often. We really love the city. We like what it's all about. We think, me and my family, when I say we, is that it's a great place to raise children. It's a great place to have a family. I want to do my best to be part of that community. I think being a member of the commission matches, being a member of the Personnel Commission matches my background, and I feel that might be the best way for me to be involved with the city of Los Alamitos.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome. Thank you. What do you think is or are the most significant issues facing the Personnel Appeals and the Planning Commission?
Great question, Mayor. Thank you for that. Well, being in human resources for quite some time, the issues that happen from a personnel standpoint change quite often. They change with the times, with the issues that are happening in and around us, within the community, within the government itself. I think one of the things that a Personnel Commission member would probably face is that of some of the issues going on in the city, whether it might be payroll, or it could be wage related, or it could be, and again, I can't say this yes or no, it could be maybe retirement or things of that nature. So any kind of grievance that an employee would bring to the city, I believe that would be the responsibility of somebody that was on that commission to make a decision on that.
Good deal. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Franz, thank you for being here. Thank you for your interest in serving the community. So, in your own words, what do you feel is the role of the Personnel Appeals and Planning Commissions in Los Alamitos?
The role is to, in my opinion, and from what I have researched, is that the role of the position is to serve the members of the City Council, serve the city of Los Alamitos, and to make the best decisions for the citizens.
Thank you.
Hi, Franz. When considering actions by the Personnel Appeals and Planning Commissions, how do you balance the best interest of the entire community against the likes and dislikes of yourself, your friends, or your neighbors?
Great question. Thank you, Councilman. That is quite a balance that somebody would have to make as part of the commission or as part of any member of the government, I think, is that you have to balance that. A lot of times, and from my experience in dealing with personnel issues, it comes down to the data. It comes down to the law and whatever the compliance is regarding that situation. So if it's down to data, data typically will tell the truth. It'll tell you what the numbers are, what the situation is. It will tell you a lot of information that you may or may not have found out on your own. So it's good to trust that, but you can't necessarily always trust that data. So you have to then look at the law. If the law matches what you need to make a decision on, that would be where I would go.
Great. So at the end here, do you have any closing statement or anything that you'd like to leave with us?
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here. I think as a new member of Los Alamitos, just within the last year or so, this is my first time to be part of a city council meeting, although I've seen them online, which is great. I think just the experience of being here has been fantastic to see everybody that's here. It won't be my last time, so whether a member of the commission or not, I think being part of the city of Los Alamitos is my goal.
Awesome. Thank you again for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Alrighty. Next up, we'd like to have Jonathan Franz. Good evening, Jonathan.
Good evening. Wasn't long ago. I think I stand here about 6 months ago. Currently a member of the Parks and Rec Commission, and throughout the last 6 months I've had a great experience on that commission, and I feel that my traits are more oriented to the Planning Commission, so that's why I'm standing in front of you today. I'm a resident of Los Alamitos for the last 5 years with my family. We're very active in the community. I coach from soccer, baseball, basketball, and we get involved as many activities as we can. We were helping out sell Christmas trees this past weekend, so trying to find muscles that I know I didn't have. So
Good deal. Thank you. Well, we appreciate you coming and trying to look at another commission, and we appreciate all your service on the Parks and Rec, so thank you. We're going to go ahead and start with Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you for applying tonight. What special traits, characteristics, or experience do you bring to the Planning Commission?
for 17 years now, I've been working in a construction firm, a large construction firm out of Los Angeles. We do anywhere from $10 million projects as a general contractor up to over $250 million projects. For the last 10 years of that 17, I've been in the main office basically doing estimating and pre-construction. And I'm responsible for anything from early planning, estimating, and the entire overall construction approach for these projects. I've been, again, from anywhere from 10 million, I've worked on projects up to $150 million myself. I'm also on the construction committee at my local church, a parish, where we just went through the process of establishing a master plan for that parish itself, which is in Seal Beach, actually. So,
Well, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Jonathan. You briefly answered this, but why do you want to serve on the Planning Commission?
so really, I'm just passionate about construction and the construction process and the planning and the zoning and the ordinances that go on related to the construction process. When you're in construction, I graduated from construction in Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, And it's just one of those things when you're walking down the street and you see things, you can't get it out of your system. So,
Great, thank you.
Good deal. What do you think is the most significant issue facing the commission at this point?
I think with any construction-related activity, it's really about safety. Safety for the community, the environment, and the people that are making the decisions on what needs to be changed or modified or continued in that process. I think also mindful growth is my thought. You have to weigh the balances of how much you want to grow, how much the city wants to grow, and keeping in that mind, you have to have the mindful growth of that mindset.
Good deal. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
So in your own words, and thank you for being here, Jonathan, and it's kind of it'll be a tough decision, I'm sure, on our part, but I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to add a little bit to it, but in your own words, what do you feel the role of the Planning Commission is in Los Alamitos? And then compounding on that is, have you been watching and following the current Planning Commission and seeing what they're doing, how they're deliberating? Have you looked at that as well? So,
I think the role of the Planning Commission is to advise and recommend, and in some instances even decide on some aspects of the zoning ordinances, the planning ordinances that are in place in the city. Unfortunately, no, I have not looked at or have not been a part or following closely those agendas, no.
okay, thank you.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hey, Mark.
When considering actions by the Planning Commission, how do you balance the best interests of the entire community against the likes and dislikes of yourself, your friends, or your neighbors?
I think it's a collective vision in my mind. As I mentioned before, it's a mindful, thoughtful process that has to happen. It's not just what myself recommends, it's what the community wants to see going forward, and it's a mindful process that has to happen. So,
Thank you.
Good deal. Would you like to make a closing statement before we move through this?
again, the last 6 months have been great on the on the Parks and Recs Commission. I'm enjoying myself thoroughly. I look forward to whatever decision is made here. At somewhere, sometime in the future, I may be standing here again. So, thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, back to the city council. So we've interviewed two people. One, Franz said he was interested in two commissions, planning or personnel appeals, and Jonathan was focused on moving from Parks and Rec to planning. I kind of run this by you guys, but we have looked through the packet. You guys were familiar with the planning commissioners and with Mr. Lee from personnel appeals. I don't feel there's really a need to pull them up and go through interviews. Does anybody have an issue if we just move from that?
No.
Okay. Okay. So, City Clerk, do you want to take us through this process?
So at this time, council was provided indications of support. You'll vote for one on the Personnel Appeals Commission, including the incumbent whose application you received prior, and then for 5 vacancies on the Planning Commission, including the 5 incumbents whose applications were also received prior. Once you receive your tallies, I'll read the indications of support, and then we'll need a motion and a second to appoint.
Great. Thank you. We'll go ahead and vote.
How are we going to handle the late balloting, the absentee ballots, and all that?
And the hanging chads.
It's still raw. It's still raw, Richard. Just let it go.
I get nervous.
You know, when all is said and done, as long as you bring Wendy along, so you're on the commission. Hmm?
Would you like to do commission by commission or just read them all?
Go ahead and just go for both.
Okay. So Personnel Appeals Commission, we have 3 indications of support for Commissioner incumbent Robert Lee and 2 for Franz Villa. And for Planning Commission, we have 2 indications of support for Jonathan Kranz, 5 indications for Mary Ann Quilty, 5 for Art DeBolt, 5 for Wendy Gross, 4 for Gary Lowe, and 4 for John Riley. So that would be, based off indications of support, you'd be voting for Robert Lee on the Personnel Appeals Commission, Mary Ann Quilty, Art DeBolt, Wendy Gross, and Gary Lowe for the Planning Commission.
Okay.
I'll make a motion?
Yeah. Can I get a motion?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Alrighty. So those are our new commissioners. Congratulations. They were welcome back to the commission. Thank you. At this time, what we're going to do is we're going to adjourn this meeting, and we'll come back in session and kick off our regularly scheduled council meeting at 6 o'clock. So we're going to go ahead and be adjourned. Thanks.
That was a tough.